Sorry, mosquitoes. You already know it's the summer here in Brooklyn. What's going on? This is Bryan Fonseca. You are back watching Side Hustle. We have Jamal Murphy on this episode who balances being a lawyer and being a sports reporter. And he's also had a background in being a sports agent. So we're going to get into all of that on this episode of Side Hustle. So you're a sports reporter, but you're a lawyer. You've been a lawyer for a long time. 14 years?
Right. Well, I graduated from law school in '05. I probably passed the bar in either '05 or '06 and became a licensed attorney, I think '06.
Yeah. So before we get into sort of the balancing act of both, because I do wonder, how does a lawyer at one point just like, you know what, I want to cover sports, given how difficult that industry is, as we know. What are some of the things that you've seen? Those eyebrows. I know what that means. It means that you've seen some shit.
I practiced different types of law,
Yeah.
so anywhere from like family law, divorce, whereas with divorce lawyer, you're basically like a psychiatrist or like a marriage counselor half the time. You could be in court basically breaking up fights, or trying to prevent fights.
Have you done that before?
Yeah, no question.
Firsthand?
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I've had to, both sides are there, they're arguing with each other, yelling. I'm like, hey, we're not getting anywhere, guys, that type of thing, So that, I mean, that's pretty routine.
Yeah.
And then, I've done criminal law, where you're really, where it's really important. People, you're trying to keep people out of jail. There's a joke in the industry, like that's the area where you'll get paid.
Oh,
because,
yeah.
I get paid right away. Like
Yeah.
you tell them, I need 2,000 to do this case. Boom, here you go. If
Yeah.
you don't go to jail. If you're doing something else like entertainment law, you might be waiting around for that check. Because it's not. Yes, they need it, but it's not. It's not life or death, or it's not, your freedom's not at stake.
Have you had any cases that are like really high profile?
I don't know about not really high profile, but I remember I represented a comedian one time. I'm not going to mention his name.
Oh my God.
But
I have a couple of guesses.
yeah, but I represented a comedian. He had been in a couple of movies, big movies, but as like a lesser role. But he was a stand-up comic, so my wife and I were out watching his stand-up at somewhere in the city downtown, and he does this bit where he pretends to high five a woman in the front row, and he intentionally misses, and he like taps her breast, right? So obviously she didn't take kindly to that, and she had a table of about 6 or 7 people with her, and they all like had attitudes. It's not a good idea to fight or to have an attitude or fight with a stand-up comic.
Yeah.
Because he can turn the whole room against you, and that's what he did. He started making jokes about them, But to make a long story short, my wife had been talking to his girlfriend prior to the show, right? So they had some sort of relationship, and then after the show, the woman who that happened to, and probably she was more also upset about him making fun of her the rest of the show.
Okay.
She goes to the police. The police arrest him, right as he's like signing autographs after the show, and they like handcuff him, put him in the car, and his girlfriend later goes up to my wife and is like, gives her card. My wife gives her card, like, hey, I don't know. So 2 weeks later, he calls me and he's like, hey man, I know you were there, I need a lawyer, blah, 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 I was just joking, I'm like, yeah, I know, and they charged him with like a serious like sexual crime. I forget what it was exactly. It was like something
really?
that you would have to like register as a sex offender. It was like
Wow.
they charged him with a felony.
Wow. When was this?
This was probably 10 plus years ago. We ended up getting him off on like a misdemeanor, not even a misdemeanor, violation. He was on probation for like 6 months.
I'm gonna look this up.
Yeah, you can look it up probably.
I'll find it.
Yeah, but one of the funny things was I was like a young lawyer at the time. I represented him in court for one hearing, And then all of a sudden, I'm leaving with him, and then like these dudes pop out, like two guys from like TMZ pop out the woodwork, start snapping pictures and asking me questions. They're like, "Oh, can I have your card?" And I'm like, I'm young. I'm like, no comment. I'm trying to be professional. Like, no comment. And then the guy's like, all the lawyers give me their cards. I'm like, oh. You know what I'm saying? Then like 2 days later, I see it in the Daily News. I was like, oh, I could have had my name in the Daily News if I would have just cooperated. But, oh well. That was one of my early stories.
That was like one of your initiations to being a lawyer.
No
so
question.
Okay, you go from there, and you've obviously had a number of other cases, but so how does the balance go from being that to being a sports reporter where you could be, helping somebody in a case, and then you have a game the next night, you know what I mean? Then you also have a family. So like, how do you sort of balance that, and ultimately what got you wanting to do the sports reporter to begin with?
Well, in terms of sports has always been my passion. I played sports early on, from an early age, from like, as long as I can remember.
Yeah, you told us you played Marbury.
Yeah, I played Marbury, and
yeah.
then like when I was in 5th grade, he was in 4th grade. He was dropping 50 on us. Like seriously, he was like a straight prodigy.
You said he made one of your teammates cry.
Oh yeah, like he made. I'm not gonna name that name either, because that's my boy still. So
the love for sports started back
then.
then.
My love for the sport started way back then, playing basketball from the 4th grade, played baseball from even before that. I played high school basketball at Poly Prep in Brooklyn. I was varsity 4 years. I was supposed to be nice, like, coming into high school, and I didn't grow. I was like one of those dudes.
Wait, so you went into high school and you were already like 6'2"?
Yeah, I was like 6'2" in high school, and people were like, oh, he's gonna be the next whatever.
And then you stayed at 6'2"?
And I stayed at 6'2", and also I didn't work as hard as as I should have. Like I wasn't in the gym every 6 a.m. like I should have been. I was on the lazy side back then. I thought I was just nice, but I didn't really get better. But I still played. Ended up playing Division III basketball in North Carolina. Also played football in high school, so. And like I said, baseball until 8th grade. But also at the same time, not only was I, and maybe this hurt me, playing wise, because I was always a big fan. You know what I'm saying? Like I was always a fan of. I watched sports nonstop.
Yeah.
I love to talk about it. I loved, everything about like college basketball, NBA. And MLB. I was a big Mets fan growing up in '86. I remember like being a young kid. Like I remember like the TVs that didn't work, like trying to bang on it, make it work and stuff like that. So no, but sports was always my passion. So it's always something I knew I wanted to do. And even the legal aspect of it, I was trying to figure out ways to get into sports with it.
Well, you did that not too long ago,
right?
With the Undefeated story,
right?
Where you sort of elaborate on that. It was the college basketball coaches.
The recent college basketball recruiting scandal that ended up in federal court.
Yeah.
And there were two big trials.
Right.
So.
And you appeared on Outside the Lines to discuss that.
Right.
Which in itself is also, a big deal.
Yeah. So I mean, when I saw that case, I decided to cover it. I decided to go down to the courtroom, to the courthouse, the federal courthouse, and because I'm a lawyer, I knew how easy it was. I mean, I know it's open to the public. And then while I was there, I started formulating a story, and the story wasn't so much legal, but it was more like a social justice.
It's different now, I would imagine, than it was before. So how did it look in the beginning?
What do you mean?
When you had first tried to get into sports reporting as a lawyer already, as opposed to where it is now, because maybe you have more of a feel of how to balance it, because it's two things that are very time consuming. You understand what I'm saying?
Because of the love I had for sports.
Yeah.
So it was just a hobby. So I was blogging. I was on Twitter.
Yeah.
I was like, because I can't help myself. I want to talk about sports.
Yeah.
And write about it. I was just doing it on the side, and then people started to pick it up. People would contact me like, oh, I saw this. How about you write for this? Can you do something for me?
When did that start? When did that start?
I don't know exactly, but it had to be probably like 10 years ago, somewhere around
there. So just a couple years in, maybe?
Yeah. I love the fact I went to law school. I enjoyed law school. I'll always have this legal degree, so I could jump back and forth. A lot of times people think that if you're a lawyer, you just know, like, anything that happens in the law, you just know, you have the answer to it. No, like people that are specialists in the law. Like if you're a criminal law lawyer, you study that every day, and that's why you're good at it. Or if you're a corporate lawyer, you're studying that particular, subject every day.
Right.
So if you ask a corporate lawyer something about a criminal law, he won't necessarily know anything.
Yeah.
The parts of the law that intersect with sports, I'm looking towards focusing on those areas and becoming an expert.
Now, you also mentioned that you were a sports agent at one point, or sort of dabbling in
Yeah,
that area.
right.
Could you sort of elaborate on that, and what was that like, and when did that happen?
Right. So that was like a perfect example of the mixture of, being a lawyer and then having a passion for sports and understanding sports. When I was thinking about why I wanted to become a lawyer, it was about helping people who needed representation, who might otherwise not know what's going on or be taken advantage of.
Yeah.
And you're thinking more criminal and civil rights in that area of just law. But then when you look at basketball, you saw the same thing. You saw these young kids who maybe were being taken advantage of. They didn't really know what their rights were, contract wise. You heard all these stories of agents getting over or agents paying up, paying their parents, and it was really, underhanded stuff going on.
Still hear that.
Right. So my idea was to get into it and be a good agent, right? Be that agent who keeps it real with the player. Like, boom, boom, I'm gonna tell you the truth. I don't have any money to give you right now, but I'm gonna work for you, and we'll make this happen.
Yeah.
So I got into it. When you get into it on your own, you have to start from the bottom. You're not going to jump in and represent an NBA player unless I grew up with LeBron James, unless he went to my high school or something like that, which I didn't have that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
we're very close enough.
Yeah. Well, we weren't like boys like that.
Right.
What I'm saying? So it came down to checking out AAU stuff, Pro City, and then trying to place kids who weren't quite good enough to make the NBA. And trying to place them on teams overseas. So I did that for a couple of years, and it was a tough grind. You start to realize it's a dirty game, and everybody who's winning that game is somehow doing it in, there's some payola there somehow, and that was against everything I stood for. And on top of that, I didn't have the money, so I couldn't do it if I wanted to.
I'm starting to realize that everything is a dirty game.
Right. So, I was like, oh, well, this is not as, it's not the scene that I thought it was. And also, when I was representing guys, overseas caliber players, it was just a rat race because, they would jump from agent to agent. It was all about who could get that job for them. There was no real loyalty there, and I understood it, because they're just trying to, they're not making that much money overseas. The average player who's playing overseas is probably making like, it could be as little as $400 a month.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you're good,
or $400 a week.
I was gonna say if you're good, maybe six figures.
Right.
Like
maybe. You have to be very good. You have to be, you just missed the draft, or you were drafted second round, and
didn't pan out.
Yeah, it didn't pan out.
Fringe NBA player.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just as hard to get those players because usually those players who just missed, they're with the big agencies too.
Yeah.
If they're getting six figures to play overseas, usually the big agencies have their hands on them also.
And just last thing for me, what do you think that the next few years look like? In terms of trying to continue this balance, like you sort of hinted at, you could see yourself maybe being on a sports team, and sort of combining those things. So I guess what are some ways that you want to continue to combine those things moving forward, and just what do you sort of see moving forward?
Well, I mean, now I'm a lot more focused on the writing and reporting. Because it's become much more than a hobby now. Now it's basically like another job.
It's a side hustle.
Yeah, it's another job, which I enjoy as much or more than I ever enjoyed the legal profession.
Yeah.
So I would have no problem making it in that way. And now I've seen doors open for me, more opportunities. I see it's doable. You just more confidence because when you know how it is. You're in locker rooms and you're writing stuff. Now you know you can compete with the best of the best that's out there. So now I'm focused on that. But but like I said from the beginning, like that legal background is not going anywhere. If there are ways down the road where I can really connect the sports and the law, I'll do it. And I'll probably always continue to write in some shape or form.
And in that background, great thing to have.
Right.
Because people trying to screw people over every day.
No question.
Oh, sorry about that. We really hope you enjoyed that conversation with Jamal Murphy. We'll be back with more Side Hustle content very soon. I'm going to get an actual ball and practice my shooting. So, peace.